Okay, so looking at the brief for the unit study HE Study Skills 2, here looking at, in this session to specifically talk about academic writing and in particular the essay. What I'm looking to do in this video is to give a brief outline and locate where this particular task is within the unit, run through some vital terms in terms of looking at essay writing structure, etc., and then simply set a quiz to recap on those terms. As you can see, this is the brief as is. It's on this one, but we're looking at the so as you know on your briefs, the first section looks at the learning outcomes, and then it looks at the specific unit criteria. The specific unit criteria which fulfills this, which you need to know, is use a plan to write a well-structured, word-processed essay. So that's what we're looking at today. The task specifically set from that requirement is looking for you to produce 4 hand-in or distinct elements to the task. The first is to write a detailed plan for an academic essay. I have plans attached to the Classworks unit here, and others I will give you as we go on. So if you're looking for a writing frame, this is what we're looking for, a filled-in writing plan, or a way of going about it that you devise yourself. You then need to produce a draft or more than one draft, which is evidence of the planning. And the reason why I say that is it is necessary for you to have everything that's in your draft to be on your plan, and everything in your plan in your draft. The two need to be married up and linked. There then needs to be evidence of proofreading, not simply so that spelling and grammar issues can be resolved, but that the piece works as a whole, that it flows, that its topics and order have the best way to present your argument at their heart. The last part is to produce the final piece of work, a word process essay based on your plan, and then evaluate the process. Like all the other things we do in study skills, evaluation and reflection are very important. Look at what worked, what didn't work. Combine into that analysis your tutor feedback, and then write a plan of action, 5 points of things you should do for the next time you write an essay. Okay, so moving on to the terminology here. The first thing to talk about is grading and analysis and evaluation and their importance in that. As you know, as we have just looked at there, you will be given pass. You will meet the pass criteria if you meet the unit assessment criteria, which was where the blue line was in the previous slide. In order to meet your higher and needed grades of merit and distinction, you need to demonstrate something higher than that. The grading descriptors typically include things like use of information, referencing, use of knowledge, introducing knowledge and subjects, but also, crucially, things like communication and quality. These grades are normally evidenced by higher grade thinking or better organizations, and in particular they're looking at analysis and evaluative content. Now, what I mean by analysis is, well, if I should start by saying what I mean by description. A description is taking the surface features and telling them as they are seen. Likewise, narration. In other words, you can describe but not go into depth would be a descriptive element. So if you're asked to describe the setup for an experiment, it's very literal and you are just giving the surface features. I'm not saying that it's not there. Analysis is going past those surface features. It's looking deeper. It's breaking down into different parts what from the surface features are. Evaluation is a matter of comparison and contrast. What is similar and what is different in what you're talking about. So if I could example, you may describe one of my lessons by talking about the number of students in the class or where the lecturer is standing, the number of tables. You may tell the story of events within that classroom by saying at one point I might be standing by the board writing something down, and so on and so forth. But that is only description. When you go past those and you start analysing, that is breaking down what is on the surface into its smaller parts, you might be saying that the students are sat in such a way as to facilitate discussion and better give opportunity for teaching and learning. So you're going past the surface feature and you're explaining what is happening underneath. You may say that although the teacher is standing at the front of the class, he often moves around in order to interact, and so on and so forth. This would be an analysis. It would be breaking down past the surface features of what a lesson is. Now, evaluation comes with comparison and contrast. So if you were, say, comparing Lola's lesson, Lola Clark, who does psychology, with Linda Broomhead, who does biology, you might talk about how similarly they set up their classroom or what they do with PowerPoint, and make a comparison of the quality of one to another, and then talk about the differences, what they do different from each other. And this would lead to a measurement, a judgment as to one is better in this way or worse in this way or more effective in, and so on. And it's looking for those judgment areas that evaluation takes place. The next important element here is to look at question analysis. It seems an obvious thing to say, but if you don't ask the question, you won't get the marks. It happens surprisingly often that the point of the question is missed, particularly under exam conditions. So it's very important that you underline keywords and phrases, you rephrase it, paraphrase it, make sure you've got it right in your head what the question is asking for, because you need to meet that requirement full on. The introduction, I would give some thought to and planning to, even in exam conditions. What you need to say in the introduction, like the introduction to this video, is what you're going to say and why. So at the start of this video, I said we were looking at academic writing. I said we were going to talk about, and I broke down in order in which the way we were going to do things, and hopefully the whole thing felt coherent and there was an understanding at the process that was going to be put in front of you. This you need to do in an introduction to an essay as well. You also need to demonstrate and set up how you are going to meet the requirements of the question. So do use the question, key question words and phrases in your initial answer. Do set out clearly what your argument is or claim is, if that is what the question requires, and show how you're going to support that with reference to the topics you will cover in the body of your essay. So you lay out what you're going to say, how you're going to achieve it, and then you lead into the main body of text, which will be various paragraphs. The conclusion concludes. It does the mirror opposite of what the introduction set out. It says, we have talked about this, this, and this demonstrates the point that you made in the beginning. So a concluding paragraph will conclude. It will be the mirror image of the rest. Paragraphs, and I'm referring to them already, make up the main body of text. There are blocks of sentences or text distinct from each other running down the page. In essays, typically there are exceptions, so I ask you to double check. There are no subheadings throughout. It's simply individual blocks of texts made up of paragraphs. Now, paragraph has no limit or minimum number of words, sentences, etc. What a paragraph is a single thought or idea explained. So it is a topic, and it should not dwell too long on explanation. It should be a single thought explained clearly. Now, if the thought is not clearly explained within half a page of text, I would suggest perhaps it needs splitting into two sub-elements of that thought and make up two paragraphs, if that makes sense. So each paragraph has its own intro, its own topic sentence. The first sentence of a paragraph introduces the substance of what is going to be discussed in that paragraph. It is the subject. It not only introduces the subject, it should also link to the claim within the introduction and your question. If you open any good textbook or other book and look at topic sentences, the first sentence that is written at the top of each paragraph, you will see, if the piece is well written, that they act as a signpost. They are like the subheadings that you're not allowed to use here. They introduce the subject matter and then they go through with that. Sorry about the ringing. So it introduces the subject matter. So that's what a topic sentence does. A supporting sentence supports, gives evidence for the claim or idea in the topic sentence. It is typically where you will find reference to studies or facts or figures. These will be explained and broken down. So this is where your analysis will take place. And although I deliberately haven't included it here, the next step also would be some element of evaluation. That is comparing the topic or thought within that paragraph to another topic or thought, either contained within the essay or from elsewhere. And perhaps a reference, an evaluative link to other paragraphs, other topics, and the subject matter in hand. Then could I ask you now to go on and take the quiz, which is next on your thing, and we'll take it